taking us through the details, the information that is publicly known and the information that we've picked up from our sources in the government. For more on what the implications are for the telecom sector, joining us now Asim, Abbas of Khaitan and Company and Jaideep, Ghosh of KPMG. Gentlemen, appreciate you joining us. Asim, let me start by asking you, while this is not official just yet, but what we do understand is that the government is looking at prospectively charging that one-time spectrum fee above 4.4 megahertz. Fraught with legal challenges, that is what we expect, that this matter is going to be taken to the courts by telecom companies, even though it's not as bad as what was anticipated, which was actually retrospective.
I think it's important to examine the provisions of the UASL license agreement with respect to spectrum, and this legal position has also been confirmed by TDSAT in one of its decision in 2010. 4.4 megahertz, which is a startup spectrum, is the vested right of telcos. From 4.4 to 6.2 megahertz, it's not a vested right, but it's a contractual right of the telco, subject to two conditions. The spectrum is available and the satisfaction of certain parameters like subscriber base and all. Beyond 6.2 megahertz, it is not the vested right of telco. This is what the legal position is. Now the charging mechanism, as stated in the US...
So you're basically saying that the telecom companies have a good legal case. The telecom companies, their argument that this is not as per the existing contract holds water.
That's right, because till 6.2 megahertz, the charging mechanism as in the license agreement is that the telcos will have to pay a royalty charge and some percentage of adjusted gross revenue as a spectrum usage charge. So there is no provision of one-time spectrum charge up to 6.2 megahertz. So if a charging mechanism is altered by the decision which has by the group of ministers, or eventually if the cabinet decides it, then it will be altering the terms and conditions of UASL license agreement.
And hence, in your opinion, it will be legally invalid. But Jaideep, Ghosh, let me come to you, because the argument from the government is that this will actually help create a level playing field. Will it really help create a level playing field?
So Shereen, I think firstly, as you said, it's not really official from the government. So I've also heard it from the media. So I think in the given situation, and that's I think the key phrase. In the given situation, this appears to be something which looks reasonable to me at this point of time, basis the information that has been mentioned by the media. So I think definitely looks better for the newer entrant and the new bidders. And possibly there are issues which some of the incumbents may have to face because of this one-time fee. But yes, to that extent, at least there is an intent to create some kind of level playing field. Having said that, of course, there would have to be some changes in the license terms and conditions, which was mentioned by the co-panelists. That's something which needs to be seen from a legal perspective. But definitely, this is something which is intended to create a level playing field for the new entrants and the incumbents.
Do you agree with that, Asim? Do you believe that this will actually create a level playing field, as is the argument?
I think the concept of a level playing field is not that all operators should be treated alike. A level playing field permits reasonable classification, and it primarily means that similarly placed operators should be treated alike or similarly. Now, the level playing field principle cannot be used to disturb the sanctity of contract or to alter the terms and condition of the license agreement, where the grounds to amend the license agreement are only public interest and the interest of national security.
All right. Jaideep, what kind of an impact do you actually see as far as the big incumbents are concerned? And also, what does this actually mean for the sector? Because, these companies are all sitting with huge debt burdens at this point in time. The government, of course, hopes to mop up about 27,000 crore rupees by way of this move if it does go through. But what is this going to mean for the incumbents?
See, I think firstly, with due respect to the co-speaker, I think the incumbents and those telecom service providers who has spectrum beyond a certain limit were aware from 2008 that there is going to be some charge at some point of time. So in that context, I think there is some preparedness. Now, obviously, now it seems that the decision is to not charge from a 2008 perspective, but going forward from the date of the decision. To that extent, I think there would be a less burden on the incumbents. At the same time, there has to be certain payouts due to this decision if it gets approved and implemented. So that definitely would impact their balance sheet and their financials, especially given that the forthcoming spectrum auctions are going to start in about a month's time from now. So definitely that's something in the short term would be hurting the incumbents.
So what do you believe the impact of this is going to be as far as the 2G auction is concerned? Because the government, while it's very hopeful of being able to net 40,000 crore rupees from the 2G auction, industry has been very, very cautious, saying we'll see, we'll take a call, we're not sure if we will actually participate and whether it will mirror what we saw happen as far as the 3G auction was concerned. On the back of the decisions that have been taken or are likely to be taken by the cabinet, we understand perhaps by around the 19th or 20th of this month, do you believe it's going to impact the participation in the auction?
See, I think the participation in the auction, as I've told to you before, is going to be definitely, I would expect it to be far more reasonable and cautious this time vis-a-vis the 3G auction that we've seen about 2 years back. Having said that, if you ask me, and we all shall be proven incorrect or otherwise in a couple of months' time, I think this particular decision of today, or not yet taken, but whatever we're hearing, that will have probably a lesser impact on the spectrum participation and pricing and so on and so forth, vis-a-vis as and when there is some decision which is taken on the spectrum refarming, which means folks operating in 900 megahertz band, which is an efficient band, has to move to 1800 megahertz band. So when and depending on the nature of that decision, I think that's going to be kind of a far more impactful thing on the bidders and may impact the auction pricing and aggressiveness and so on and so forth vis-a-vis this. But this has an impact on the incumbents as well, as I said before.
Okay. Asim, Abbas, final words with you. As Jaideep was pointing out, incumbents knew that they were going to have to pay this one-time spectrum fee. There must have been a degree of preparedness, and in fact, if you go by what we are picking up from our sources, it's actually a reprieve. It's not the worst case scenario, it's perhaps the best case scenario as far as incumbents are concerned.
Yeah, you're right. It's not a worst case scenario, but I think the degree of preparedness was probably for giving a one-time spectrum charges beyond 6.2 megahertz rather than 4.4 megahertz. But the worst scenario was that at some point of time there was a discussion that the entire spectrum should be charged at a market determined price. So you're right, it's not a worst scenario, it's somewhere midway, but the logic of one-time spectrum charge is more with respect to spectrum beyond 6.2 megahertz rather than 4.4.
All right, so perhaps somewhere in the middle. It's mixed news, and this is, of course, as I'm caveating against source-based information, official confirmation on the decisions taken by the EGOM will be taken to the cabinet, we understand, towards the middle of this month. Asim, Abbas and Jaideep, Ghosh, appreciate you joining us here.